Pulling characters is probably the most exhilarating part of playing One Piece Treasure Cruise. The excitement of seeing those red and gold posters fall, and the anticipation of seeing what character you actually got. But there's also the flip side of those terrible characters that make you want to pull out your hair for ever gracing your character box. And that's what we're counting down today, the top 10 worst rare recruit pools. Obviously we're excluding out farmable characters that you get in story mode but are still in the rare recruit pool, as well as base forms of any character. We'll be judging these characters not only on their stats, special and captain ability, but also in context of other characters, including free to play characters, as well as what batch they came in. This will also only be covering the units available currently in the global version of the game. Now normally I show footage of the actual characters that I'm talking about being played, but these characters are never going to be played and you really shouldn't use them. So, you know, enjoy some random footage instead. So with all that said, let's get started. Number 10 goes to all the 4-star characters. Now these guys are all put at this spot because otherwise they just fill up the whole list. But the whole point of them is that they're terrible and they're added into the pool just to weaken the characters you could get. So you could say that they're doing their job well, but the job is that they suck. The only good one of note is Koza, who has a pretty strong special. But other than that, Bellamere, Kaya, Hotori and Kotori, Pell, Chaka, Nojiko and Crocus, all straight garbage. None of these characters even have more than 1000 attack, and no one has more than 2000 HP. At least they maxed out at level 70, but that's not really an advantage. They were born to be bad, and they're doing their job pretty well. Just never show up with my Sugos, please. Although I know you always will. At number 9 we have CURIEL. Now other than the 4-star characters, there really aren't any straight up horrendous characters in the rare recruit pool, but CURIEL is still pretty bad. His stats are pretty decent. He has a respectable 2400 HP and 1350 attack, and his captain ability, while on the weak side, has some uses if you don't have a better one, but his special is pretty subpar, pushing the middle row to either strength or dex orbs, and the bottom row to either psi or int orbs, and then allowing you to switch orbs just once. I mean, at that point you might as well just randomize the orbs. It's not a very consistent orb manipulation skill, and only allowing you to switch orbs once really isn't going to help that as much. Overall he's just okay, a decent sub, but not much more than that. Compared to other rare recruits he's definitely subpar. At number 8 we have KUMADORI. Now his HP and RCV are pretty decent, clocking in at around 2500 and 350 respectively, but his attack is rather on the weak side, just being barely over 1000, and the fact that it costs 26 doesn't really help matters. On top of that, his captain ability is pretty mediocre, being a strength version of Whitebeard's captain ability, boosting units attack when his HP is below 30%. The attack boost is times 3, the benefit really doesn't outweigh the cost of having to get that low on HP. It's barely worth it with Whitebeard these days. And in conjunction with his special, which just lets you swap orbs 3 times and then locking them, which really is for more rainbow team than just a coloured, his captain ability would suggest you make, adds up to him being pretty subpar overall. Compared to other CP9 units such as Kaku and Jabra, he's pretty disappointing to say the least. With units like Colosseum Kid and Colosseum Urigi, as well as Calgora, this strength striker really doesn't have any uses. At number 7 we have INAZUMA. Now this guy is pretty awful. He has pretty good HP at 2500 and pretty strong RCV at 380. His attack is abysmal, going in at only 833. And he costs 29. 29. Gear 3 costs 22 and this guy costs 29. All he does is boost slashes by 1.5. You might as well use Gear 2 at that point, he's freaking rainbow at least. I mean, he deals 5 times his attack at the end of each turn, but that's about as effective as slapping them with a dead fish, so it's really not worth mentioning. His special is the only really salvageable thing about him, cutting any damage you take over 5000 by 97% for 3 turns. While this does sound powerful, you're still going to have to take, what, 15,000 damage to get full value? Most of the time you're taking a damage reducer to tank 1 hit, and Alvida and Perona negate 80% and 90% respectively, without having to take the first 5,000 damage. So while, you know, he might have some use, it really isn't that probable that you'll find a way to use him more effectively than other damage reducers. I mean, Alvida has 1000 attack, and she costs 15. God, this guy's stats are bad. At number 6 we have Lion Song Zoro. Now the one major thing going for Zoro is that he has a massive HP stat. So his attack stat is pretty mediocre and his RCV stat is non-existent. And his special is the generic 25 times attack damage that they give to anyone and when they can't think of a unique special. Now his captain ability is actually pretty useful for zombie teams when paired with someone like Vivi, allowing you to slowly slap down your enemies over like 5 million turns. But the main reason he's on the list is that his base form is actually better than the evolved form. Now usually you're pretty excited to get the evolved form of a unit since you don't have to spend the extra experience points and evolution materials to get to the evolved form, but if you happen to pull this version instead of his base form, Streaming Wolf Zoro, you're stuck with the worst one. His base form has a special that allows you to negate all damage received from strength enemies for 1 turn, which is extremely useful. Why they made it so that you lost this special ability when you evolved is beyond me, turning what could actually have been a pretty strong unit into a pretty mediocre one instead. At number 5 we have Violet. Much like Inazuma, while her HP is pretty good and her RCV is actually pretty outstanding, her attack is atrocious. 800 max attack is pretty terrible for anyone, especially for someone that costs 30. No one in their right mind would use her as a sub just for her stats. So what do her captain ability and special do? Well, her captain ability increases the amount of belly you receive by ×3. And as you probably know, belly becomes pretty abundant midway through the game, so you know, you'll be thrown out the windows, you'll have so much gold, making this captain ability borderline useless. I mean, you might have some use of it if you're early into the game, but you know, she costs 30, so you wouldn't use her then anyway. Pretty much all non-damage increasing captain abilities are garbage, and this is just one of the proofs. Special reduces the special cooldown of Cereborn fighters by 2 turns, and pretty much shows you all the stats of the enemies you're facing. While I do give this points for being unique, it really isn't all that useful. I mean, really, are you gonna look up the stats of the enemies yourselves? Are you gonna watch videos like this? Or look up a guide and save the freaking stamina to actually run the raid instead? +1 point for originality, -10 points for everything else. At number 4 we have Buffalo. Another example of a character with decent HP and RCV but pretty mediocre attack. A common theme amongst all these rare recruits. Now I really want to like Buffalo. He has a really cool captain ability that boosts the damage multiplier based on combo hits rather than greats or perfects. But really the damage output is really minimal at best. Maybe in the future combo hit teams might be a thing, since the Funk Brothers have a similar ability. Like maybe they add a character that has like 30 combo hits on his attack. But until then, this captain ability is garbage. Making it all the more worse, his special is pretty terrible as well, giving himself a quick orb and randomizing all other orbs. Such a selfish special for such a useless attacker. I mean, Croc has a similar special, but he has 1400 attack, and he does damage with his special as well. Overall, he sucks. At number 3 we have Loyal Chopper. So what does Loyal Chopper have going for him? He's pretty cute, and I guess his stats aren't too terrible, being decently well rounded. However, his captain ability is pretty terrible, especially considering we all get a Zoro for free, so pretty much any subpar deck's captain ability is useless. He has a cellular ability at least, but again pretty useless, boosting his own RCV by 50, which really isn't going to see much use. And his special removes poison, probably the least threatening status element in the game. I mean, the only real poisons that really threaten you are the ones that start off on the stage, but the cooldown at max is 17, so what the hell are you going to use it for? I mean, you also heal for 15 times his RCV, which is a nice heal, but overall it really isn't all that useful. He's just a pretty meh unit all round, an all round okay guy, but really I don't think anyone would be happy to pull this guy, which is what puts him on the list in the first place.
その服の定め脅かしてすまなかったな。今日は殺生すると運気が落ちる日な。
At number 2 we have BASIL Hawkins. BASIL Hawkins has actually pretty good stats, having 2500 HP and around 1300 attack, as well as 250 RCV. So what puts him so high on this list? Well, I really just can't get past how bad his captain ability and special are. As previously stated, pretty much all captain abilities that don't deal damage or increase the damage you do are useless. And his captain ability not only reduces your RCV by 90% for some reason, all it does is reduce the damage you receive by 40%. Some guys reduce the damage you receive by like 20 or 30% and give you an attack boost. This guy not only has a cost to do that, but isn't even all that useful. It's probably the worst captain ability for pretty much any rare recruit in the entire game. And his special doesn't really help matters either, cutting HP of enemies by a measly 10% and reducing all their defenses by 50% for 3 turns. Now, cutting HP by 10% is really nothing. And when you're reducing defenses of enemies, you really want 100% on nothing at all. So at max cooldown, you're waiting 15 turns to do 3 turns of nothing. If you're in need of an int attacker, Nightmare Luffy, Aokiji, Story Mode Croc, there's plenty of examples of guys that are much better that you can get much easier. And the list goes on in terms of just better beat sticks rather than this guy. He's overall such a disappointment, especially considering all the other great supernova units there are that he came in with, which is why he ranks so high up on the list. And at number 1 we have Mr. Prince. Mr. Prince is essentially a joke character. While he is a 4-star character, the reason he isn't bunched up with everyone else at number 10 is that while those guys are added in as a silver badge, specifically to ruin the rare recruit pool, Mr. Prince was added in with the straw hats. And literally every other straw hat was actually really good. The aforementioned Streaming Wolf Zoro, Bath Towel Nami, original Nico Robin, and of course Gear 3. That's right, this guy came out next to Gear 3. He was in the same batch as Gear 3. Bandai Namco must really hate Sanji, because there's no real other reason to make him the only 4-star character in the batch, and not only that, the only terrible character in the batch. His stats are horrendous, which is to be expected of a 4-star character. His captain ability is vastly overshadowed by Gear 3 Luffy's, and his special is pretty garbage. I mean, you can use him with other ramping captains like Log Luffy, Gear 3, or Rayleigh, and you know, he can feel like he's helping, but he's totally not helping. This guy really cemented the trend of seeing all terrible Sanjis that would not be broken really until 3-day 2-year Sanji. This guy probably is the most infuriating guy to ever pull in a Sugo, outside of the silver batch guys. Like, you can't even really use him for sockets since most of the Sanjis suck. He's the scourge of my One Piece Treasure Cruiser existence, and I hope I never see him again. Well, that was the list. I'm sure, you know, there'll be some diversive opinions. You can leave those in the comments and tell us who you thought should have been on the list instead if the order was not to your liking. Let us know. Some of you probably, you know, found uses for the guys I've said that are completely useless, or you know, I've made a mistake, which I never do, and you can tell me in the comments as well. Or if you don't want to complain, please like, comment and subscribe instead. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time, my nakama!